Thinking is everything when it comes to eating and body image and weight issues. It's the core of the problem. So what I'm really talking about is not going on yet another diet. It's about going on a thought diet. And here's what I mean by that. I mean thinking less about food and thinking about it in a particular way. If you think about it romantically, that's associated with troubled eating and heavier body weight. If you think about food from a mature perspective, if you think about it pragmatically, then you'll be thinking about it when you're hungry or it's time to eat. And that's it. If you think about food from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, you're going to have trouble with food. There's no question about it.
So how do I stop thinking about food?
You stop thinking about food. Well, first of all, thoughts just arise, right? There's nothing you can do about it. They're just there. So what you can do is ignore them. Notice them and turn away from them. Because what's happening now is, for people who have eating issues, it's like they're constantly glued to the food channel. They're always paying attention to their food thoughts and following them. So notice them and turn away. It's like when you have a mosquito that's buzzing around your head, you just flick it away. Turn away from it, ignore it. And following food thoughts is a habit, and turning away from them is also a habit. So it's creating that new habit. And the reason we have food issues is because we've reinforced that habit of following those food thoughts. If you turn away from them and that becomes your default position, you're not going to have a food issue anymore. It's just a matter of time.
So is this a permanent fix? It sounds like once it happens, it's irreversible.
You know, when kids wet the bed, it's because a part of their brain hasn't matured yet. And in a way, this issue with food is the same thing. It's a part of us that hasn't matured yet. It's a part of us that hasn't grown up yet with regard to food. And so it's like living with a petulant 2-year-old in your head with regard to food, and that's what's governing your food. No wonder we have trouble with it. So if you learn to stop listening to that child, or deal with it in the same way you would deal with any child. You know, if it's a child saying to you, I want that cookie now, you'd say, not now, maybe later, or it'll spoil your dinner, whatever you say. But you don't just follow that. You don't just indulge that.
So I see the expression inner child in your book. Is that what you mean? And you're referring to the child in this instance?
It is the same child. A lot of people have done inner child work and gotten in touch with and helped to heal that inner child in them. But it's also a pleasure-seeking principle that I call the pleasure-seeking child. So at a certain point, when enough healing work has been done with the inner child, you can actually start to turn away from the dictates of that pleasure-seeking principle. You don't need to keep following it. Because if you form the habit of following the wants and the desires of the pleasure-seeking child, thinking leads to feeling, which leads to action. So in the case of food, thinking creates desire, which leads to eating. And so that's why people perpetually yo-yo and perpetually have issues with their weight.